My name is Craig. I've been married to Cindy for 7 years. And I'll be real with you, the last 2 years felt like I was sharing a house with a polite stranger. The spark that had once lit up our days, hell, even our nights, fizzled out long before I was ready to let go. Still, I held on, hoping somehow we'd find our way back. What finally broke me? One text message from her. Sent from Vegas. That was the moment I realized I'd been fooling myself. I met Cindy back when I was in my late 20s. We were at one of those dull networking mixers, you know, the kind where everyone's half distracted and the drinks are weak. I didn't expect anything to come of it. We traded small talk, business cards, the usual routine. I figured that'd be it. But a few days later, she texted me. From there, it turned into late-night calls, lunch dates that ran over into afternoons, and spontaneous dinners that felt like secret adventures. Looking back, I see how fast it all happened. We were swept up in something that felt electric, real. It didn't take long for those sparks to turn into plans for the future. When we decided to get married, we didn't drag our feet. We were all in. Those first few years felt solid. We laughed a lot. We leaned on each other when life threw curveballs. We made plans like partners who trusted that tomorrow was ours to build. We weren't wealthy by any means, but we were steady. It felt like we were laying down a foundation for a life together. The one thing missing, though, the thing we both wanted, was a family. We tried and tried, riding the roller coaster of hope and disappointment. Every failed attempt cut a little deeper than the last, but we never really talked about how much it hurt. Instead of clinging to each other, we started drifting toward our careers, like it was easier to pour our energy into work than to face what wasn't working between us. Cindy started taking on more clients, more side gigs, anything to keep herself busy. I did the same, longer hours, more responsibility, anything to fill the silence. We shared a home, but it felt like our heads were in separate universes. Looking back, I can see we were slowly turning into strangers who happened to share an address. What used to come naturally, the closeness, the laughter, became a rare commodity. It wasn't an overnight shift, it was like a slow leak, year after year, until there was nothing left but the empty sound of routine and duty. I guess I didn't want to see it, but by the time we hit 7 years, I couldn't pretend anymore. Cindy was practically a ghost in our own house. I'd see her work hours stretching into the night, one trip after another. She'd tell me it was for conferences, seminars, networking, always something work-related. But something inside me just couldn't buy it anymore. I'm in the corporate world too. I know how rare those all-expenses-paid trips really are. But according to Cindy, they were never-ending. And still, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to fix whatever was broken. Maybe if I eased her stress, took some weight off her shoulders, she'd come back to me. So I stepped up. I took over the financial side of things. I handled the bills, the mortgage, the day-to-day stuff, hoping she'd find her way back to us. For a little while, I thought I'd been right. She started coming home a bit earlier, her smile a little less forced. I dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, things were turning around. But that fragile hope didn't last long. Just as quickly as Cindy had started to come home earlier, she slipped right back into her old habits. The late nights came back in full force, and the out-of-town trips seemed to multiply overnight. Whenever I tried to talk about it, she'd get defensive. One evening, I finally mustered the nerve to ask if we could sit down together, just the two of us, and figure out what went wrong. She looked up from her phone and shot back, "What's your problem? How exactly do you want us to reconnect?" Her words hit me like a slap. I couldn't even get a response out before she turned her attention back to her screen. From that night on, things only got colder. Our conversations felt more like a business transaction, bills, chores, who'd pick up groceries. Anything deeper was off limits. Every time I tried to talk about the distance between us, she'd cut me off or change the subject. I tried to suggest date nights, just one night a week to remind ourselves we were more than roommates. She brushed it off every time, saying she was too busy. Therapy? She rolled her eyes. Even on weekends when she'd promised she'd be free, she'd cancel last minute, saying she was too tired or had work to catch up on. Each rejection stung more than the last, like another door slamming shut in my face. Then she started sleeping in the guest room. Sometimes after a small argument, sometimes for no reason at all. At first, I tried to be patient, maybe she just needed space. But eventually, I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling that there was someone else. I didn't have proof, but I've been around long enough to know that intimacy doesn't just vanish. A woman doesn't wall herself off completely unless she's getting that closeness somewhere else. Then came that Tuesday night. Cindy told me her company was sending her to Vegas for a team-building retreat. A whole week, Saturday to Friday. I just stared at her. Vegas? For team building? It didn't add up. I mean, what kind of company shuts down for a week just to bond over cocktails and PowerPoint slides? I wasn't trying to pick a fight. I just asked what any husband would ask, what kind of retreat is this? Is it a conference or something else? That's when her entire expression changed, like I'd accused her of plotting a crime. Why do you always have to ruin everything? She snapped. Are you saying I'm lying? You think I'm making this up? I kept my voice steady even though my stomach was in knots. Cindy, I'm your husband. It's not crazy for me to want to understand where you're going or why your company thinks it's perfectly normal to party in Vegas for an entire week, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But Cindy wasn't hearing any of it. She blew up at me louder than she ever had before. Then she dropped a line that felt like a punch in the gut. I'm only in this marriage because I choose to be. But keep pushing me like this and I'll end it and I'll make sure you lose everything. I sat there in shock, watching the woman I'd built my life with talk to me like I was an inconvenience. The next day, she packed her bags and left for that so-called retreat. She said she'd be back the following Friday, but by then, I already had my doubts. The house felt weirdly calm after she left, like I could finally breathe without worrying about walking on eggshells. Still, I didn't really believe she meant it when she threatened divorce. She'd thrown that word around before, usually during heated arguments. I thought she was just blowing smoke. I had no idea how wrong I was. Thursday night, one day before she was supposed to come home, I was on the couch unwinding after a long day at work. My phone buzzed. It was Cindy. I opened her message and my heart just stopped. There she was, standing next to some guy I didn't recognize, both of them grinning in front of what looked like a courthouse or a wedding registry. Right underneath that photo, she typed, "Just married my coworker. By the way, you're pathetic for not calling me this whole week." For a second, everything around me just disappeared. I didn't know what to feel, rage, heartbreak, betrayal. It all hit me like a wave. I stared at that message, wondering how the woman I loved had turned into someone I didn't recognize. I finally typed one word, okay, because in that instant I knew I was done. I took a screenshot of the message just in case she tried to spin it some other way later. Then I called the one person I trusted most in situations like this, my old college buddy Ryan. He's a family lawyer, sharp as a blade. After I sent him the screenshot, he just said, "All right, let's talk tonight. Don't make any sudden moves until we talk." That phone call from Ryan marked the beginning of the end for Cindy and me. By the time midnight rolled around, I'd finally accepted I was done waiting for her to come back to her senses or remember how to love me again. First thing I did was freeze the joint bank account that her debit card was tied to. I didn't care if she was stuck somewhere or needed cash to wine and dine her new husband. I also shut down every shared credit card we had. If she wanted to live it up with her coworker, she could pay for it herself. Then I called a locksmith and had them booked for the next morning to change every lock on the house. That Friday morning, she landed back in town. I didn't know the exact time, but I later found out she'd made it to the airport and tried to buy something only to realize her card was useless. I was already at work when she made it to the house and saw she couldn't get in. Not long after, I got a call from the local police department. An officer politely asked if I could come by and open the door because my wife was outside saying she couldn't get in. I headed over. When I got there, I explained calm and collected that I owned the house outright. My name was the only one on the deed. She'd left of her own choice for an entire week. Given what she'd done in Vegas, I didn't feel safe or comfortable letting her walk back in without a real conversation. I needed to protect myself. The officers actually understood. They didn't try to force entry. They reviewed my documents, saw that I was listed as the sole owner, and told her that it was a civil matter she'd have to settle through the courts. That's when Cindy lost it. She was screaming on the front lawn like a bad reality show meltdown. She started telling the officers it was all just a joke, wedding Vegas, too much alcohol, the whole thing was a mistake. I didn't bother arguing. I didn't need to. I just turned to the officers and said, "My lawyer will be in touch. If you need me, please ask her to leave." I can't even describe how I felt hearing her claim it was all just a prank. A part of me wanted to believe her, to cling to some shred of the woman I thought I knew. But the bigger part of me was just done with the mind games, the silent treatments, the manipulative moods, the constant tiptoeing in my own home. Her so-called joke felt like the final slap in the face. Even if she'd been drunk, who goes and signs a marriage license with someone else for laughs and then has the nerve to rub it in their husband's face? That week, I met with my lawyer and we started the divorce paperwork, irreconcilable differences, and suspected infidelity. I didn't need a smoking gun to prove she'd cheated. Her own words, that picture from Vegas, and the months of shady behavior leading up to it were more than enough. I also made sure to push for a complete separation of our assets. Cindy didn't just accept it quietly, of course. She lawyered up fast. But she never saw it coming that we were dead serious. My attorney went straight to the Clark County Recorder's office to verify whether that wedding with her coworker actually had legal weight. And surprise, it did. His name was Jared. But here's where the plot twisted even more. Jared was already married. Married. So this wasn't just a case of poor judgment on a drunken night. It was bigamy, a real criminal charge. My lawyer didn't waste any time. He reported it to the district attorney and handed over every piece of evidence we had: screenshots, marriage certificate, everything. That kicked off a full-on investigation. Both Cindy and Jared were contacted by authorities. Now they were looking at felony charges. Meanwhile, in family court, the judge granted me temporary financial protection. She couldn't just empty our accounts or pull any shady moves while the divorce was happening. I was also awarded full use of the house, which made sense since I owned it solely. Plus, the court froze all joint assets so nothing could disappear behind the scenes. For the first time in months, I felt like I could actually breathe. Then the criminal case hit its stride. Cindy ended up facing formal charges for bigamy. She tried every angle to talk her way out of it, claimed it was a joke, insisted she thought the ceremony was fake, swore they were too drunk to know what they'd signed. She argued the Vegas chapels were just for show. But the prosecution had her nailed down. They had the signed marriage certificate plus a hotel receipt with both of them listed as Mr. and Mrs. Jared. After months of delays, paperwork, and a whole lot of back and forth in court, Cindy's case finally reached its conclusion. The court didn't buy her excuses. The judge wasn't interested in hearing that it was all just a misunderstanding. They treated it for what it was, a second illegal marriage while she was still tied to me. When the verdict came in guilty, I felt a weird sense of relief. Before anyone imagines she ended up in an orange jumpsuit behind bars, let me be clear. The court decided against jail time probably because it was her first offense and maybe they figured public shame and legal headaches were punishment enough. Instead, she got probation, a $10,000 fine, and mandatory community service. No, it wasn't prison, but it sure as hell wasn't a free pass either. That felony conviction was going to hang over her like a black cloud, following her every step. And the fallout didn't stop there. The minute word got out about her conviction, her job crumbled. Her employer didn't want a convicted felon on the payroll, especially not in the corporate world. HR didn't waste a second. She was fired practically overnight. And get this, turns out her company never even did those kinds of retreats. That didn't matter to me anymore, though. As for me, my side of things wrapped up cleaner than I ever expected. The court granted me a full divorce, no alimony, no financial ties, nothing left to fight over. They saw her actions for the betrayal they were, and it weighed in my favor. I kept the house, kept my savings, and, most importantly, kept my peace. In the end, her little Vegas stunt cost her everything she thought she had power over. Looking back now, I realize I couldn't have asked for a smoother exit. After all those years, I got my freedom on a silver platter, thanks to one idiotic decision she made in a cheap Vegas chapel. The truth is that one impulsive, arrogant move of hers gave me the green light to walk away on my terms. It let me protect everything I'd worked for and step out without getting bled dry. Sometimes, late at night, I still wonder what was going through her head. Did she really think I'd beg her to come back? That I'd forgive everything, patch it up, and pretend none of it happened? I'll never know, and honestly, I don't need to. All I know is she handed me an exit and I took it. And you know what? It doesn't get better than that. In divorce, you don't always get to choose how the door opens, but when it does, you'd better be ready to walk through it.